I think truly, 2 weeks ago, Peter King wrote in his article, Football Morning in America, that like this guy's not in meeting rooms. He hasn't really dealt with Brian Greasy. He doesn't have the playbook. And here we are, and they're, to Ian's point, here's the playbook. Learn the offense because it is a new offense, and we do have a new quarterbacks coach, and you are the backup. On August 30th, it's a win-win. If you were to ask the Niners in March if this was the ideal scenario, they would tell you, hell no. If you were to ask the Niners a month ago, is this the ideal scenario, they'd say no. But when you look at these contracts, and let's take a look at what they got Jimmy G to agree with here, gosh, it's a lot more palatable, and it sure is easy to take when it's 1 year, $6.5 million with a ton of incentives as opposed to a $24 million albatross going into September. Here's my instant analysis. One, you've got to be a rare type of person to be able to accept that kind of pay cut and say, yeah, I'll be the backup. That's Jimmy Garoppolo. Two, the price for Jimmy is going to go up no matter what because now he is at this salary number where you could actually trade for him, and players are going to get injured throughout the season. So a team's going to lose their quarterback. So the Niners can now say, hey, would you like Jimmy Garoppolo at $6.5 million as opposed to, would you like Jimmy Garoppolo at $24 million? Don't get it twisted. He is still a tradable asset. And yes, he's got a no-trade clause, but that means he can only approve or disapprove. It doesn't mean they can't make a deal for him. Backup quarterback is going to be an enormous situation for the 49ers, and I just don't know if Sudfeld was the guy in San Francisco. They know they've got a championship roster and quarterback's the question mark. Now they've got Jimmy. They know they can win with Jimmy. And lastly, if Jimmy does well and leaves and goes elsewhere, they get something called a compensatory pick at the end of this thing. Next year, they're going to get a third-round pick. There was no third-round pick on the table by any team for Jimmy Garoppolo. It seems like a win-win. The major what-if is, what if Trey stinks and Jimmy has to play the whole way, and what does that do for our team? Because I promise you this, if you had told the Niners when they traded 2 first-round picks for Trey Lance that Jimmy Garoppolo would still be on the roster, they would say that's the absolute not ideal scenario for what we're looking for.
I like the Sudfeld point. I like the compensatory pick. I like the finances. This is weird. This is strange. And it feels a lot like 2 parents staying together for the kids. Like, I don't know if the motivation is there. I actually really like a lot of the practical reasons of this. They make sense. And I like that the Niners are doing something different. Do something different in this year's NFL. Like, you got to be bold. They have the best backup quarterback. They got this emergency plan. It's for cheap. All that practical stuff is great. Up till they played the Bears in the opener and Lance throws 3 interceptions and they lose to the Bears. Okay, all right, well, that's 1 loss. And then you start the season 1-3, and Lance is just kind of a mess. Maybe do no small part that there's a better quarterback who's backing him up. Then you got sinking ships. And then you got, let's say it's the nightmare scenario, just a nightmare, that Lance is a mess and doesn't have it, and Kyle says enough of this, put Jimmy in. And then Jimmy's going to be good because Jimmy's good and Jimmy's going to win and Jimmy's going to go and then they're probably going to get to the playoffs and then where are you? And then where are you right when Jimmy gets hurt, which he probably will at the end of the season? There's so many things that are so combustible about this. There's a few things that will break a team fast, and that is when the best quarterback is not starting, and it's obvious. And you cannot tell me there are not Jimmy guys in that locker room. They all say the right thing. They say, Trey this, Trey that. They're Jimmy guys. I remember the Philadelphia Eagles building a shrine for Nick Foles, even though Carson Wentz was starting. And that got real weird, and we see what happened to Carson after that. If Trey can play, we're good, baby. Just get him out there, start winning. Jimmy comes in maybe if you need to at the end of the year. But Trey's got to go. And the biggest, most important thing for the San Francisco 49ers organization by far, never mind Jimmy, never mind Kyle, Trey Lance has to be a good player. What they spent for him and what they have invested in him, I don't know if this serves Trey Lance well. We'll find out a lot about how he's made up between the ears because this would pull my chair out. If that guy's still here and he's sitting there talking in meetings, I don't love it. The practical reason's great. The emotional reasons are complicated.
Yeah, and you hit on it. Credit to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Sure.
In today's world, we look at athletes and we say, oh, they're greedy, guys just want the money, this, that, and the third. This guy just wants to be a part of the team. He wants to be able to practice. He wants to be able to show up to meetings. So he's taking a significant pay cut just to be on this team and to back up Trey Lance after he just was in the conference championship game.
It's crazy.
And a few years ago, he just was in the Super Bowl. And it's not as if he was beat out and, all right, we went to training camp, we competed, Trey Lance won, so you know what? I'll take less money, I want to remain, I'll be his backup. No, you just handed him the job and forced me to do this. And I'm giving him credit because if I'm in his position, I don't know if I don't force the 49ers' hand. I don't know if I'm taking less. You know what? If you don't want to pay me the $24 million, release me. I'll figure out my next destination, and maybe this has something to do with his health.
You are taking the words out of my mouth, because is the only way that question goes for me is, why did he do this? And if he isn't, he's a good guy. He's a consummate pro. That's what we've seen unfold over the last 4 months. So why? Does he need more time? Does he need to, it's not a cover-up, but does he need a safe space to get healthy, get right? And if he needs to be called upon, let's just say Trey Lance is going to have plenty of wiggle room here to sink or swim. Let's say 5-6 weeks. Jimmy Garoppolo might be looking at this and saying, I can't go anywhere else right now. I'm just not right yet with my shoulder. But if 5 or 6 weeks is the alleged window that they're going to give Trey Lance, because they have to. Like, this is not a 3-week job. Like, you're going to really be looking down at 6 weeks and thinking, is Jimmy G all of a sudden, is that what we're hearing from 49ers fans? And that might just be enough time that he needs for his shoulder to get right. Furthermore, it does so imply to me that in the offseason, this was never what the 49ers wanted. Like, why would Kyle Shanahan have that weird quote of, he's our 4th quarterback on the roster, and he's just kind of lingering around on the depth chart? So weird. The handling of this has just been so odd. To me, that's further credit to Jimmy Garoppolo for hanging in there. Things have been said about him. John Lynch is on Thursday Night Football talking about, like, we would take a great offer if it came to us, and yet he still does this. This is incredible. My last point is that I think about the best case scenario for these two parties. And essentially it is the 49ers win a Super Bowl. And it's with one of these two guys. And if it's Trey Lance, then that's great. Then Kyle Shanahan made the right decision. If it's with Jimmy Garoppolo, he's about to get paid. He's just won a Super Bowl in an unforeseen circumstance with a team that is wildly talented. And then he gets to go off into the free agent market and be like, let's go, I finally get mine. That's the only way I try to put a positive spin on it.
And in that scenario, it would have meant that he'd played the games where he's still going to make $16 million.
Yes.
And like those incentives are huge. I think in Jimmy's head, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Jimmy, but I think in Jimmy's head, he's not doing this unless he thinks he's getting on the field. He's not signing this for $6.5 million. I think in his head, it's like, all right, I'm going to make some bucks and I'll be a free agent at the end of the year. I don't know if he's doing the Niners such an overall fit where he's saying, hey, those incentives, that $10 million in incentives, I'm going to go earn those.
And I think, too, with that, as he's rehabbing for a quarterback, you need receivers to throw to. Once you leave the facility and you go and maybe he's a California kid, wherever he'd be located, and you're going to a great rehab spot, who are the receivers you're going to be throwing to? Everybody's in season, whether it's college athletes. You got one, you know?
He's on Tinder, like swiping for receivers. Who's available? Let's go.
At least staying allows you to have the atmosphere to be able to get your proper rehab, have guys to throw to, go out there and practice, and makes him more tradable, and he gets to pick his own destination.
Is he the best guy in the world, or did he have no options? Like, where was he going to go?
Fair.
I'm still wondering. I'm still
if he was cut, I think a lot of teams would have signed him.
Yes.
I do.
You do?
Yes.
To be their starter?
To be their backup.
Well, he doesn't want to be a backup then, so you stay home.
He's a backup now.
I know, but at least he's in the same organization. He's not move and everything like that. Like, I went through the league, and I'm like, okay, let's say the big quarterback injury does happen. Who's the team that would immediately say, trade for Jimmy Garoppolo to be our starting quarterback? No one really jumps out. I think we overvalue him a little bit. I really do.